Hello, and thank you for joining today's session that details Plymouth-Canton's journey to close the achievement gap and also explains how you can replicate their steps in your school or district. My name is Mark Callahan, and I work for TextHelp. We're the creators of UDL-based solutions like Read&Write, Fluency Tutor, Equatio, and RIQ. I'm thrilled to have Stacey Banks joining me for today's session. She's a teacher and one of two assistive technology consultants at Plymouth-Canton Community Schools in Michigan. I've had the pleasure of partnering with Stacey and her district colleagues for 3 years, and we're very excited to share their story with you. Today's agenda includes a quick review of their literacy challenges. We'll also highlight the search for a UDL-based solution, discuss how the pilots were structured and the use of NWEA's MAP assessment data to track student growth, and how the pilots led to a district-wide read-and-write purchase. We'll also talk about the pre- and post-COVID impact of using read-and-write with Plymouth-Canton students to increase both their literacy and writing skills. And we'll also answer your questions during the live Q&A session that follows. Stacey, why don't you start by telling us a little bit more about the students attending Plymouth-Canton Community Schools?
Okay, as Mark mentioned, we are one of the largest school districts in Michigan. We currently have around 18,000 students spread across 14 elementary schools, 5 middle schools, 3 high schools in one park, and an alternative high school. We are also a one-to-one Google district, and all of our students have access to a device in grades 3 K through 12 through our one-to-one program. Our K2 classrooms are equipped with a cart that provides student access to iPads for use throughout the school day. Our grade 3 through 12 students can opt into our district one-to-one Chromebook program or bring their own device to access Google tools in all buildings. Last, in terms of our population, about 10% of our students are students with IEPs, and then there are also 10% of our students that are English language learners. Of that 10%, students in our district speak 60 different languages, and the second largest language group in our district are students that speak Arabic at home.
Wow. So you guys are just about 25 minutes outside of Detroit, is that right?
Yes, we are. And again, we face some of the same challenges that most districts face, and as a part of our district's dynamic plan, we are always continuing to work on closing the achievement gap for all of our students. This work included looking for a UDL-based solution that addressed academic barriers in order to empower all of our PCCS students.
Okay. So I know when we first started chatting a few years ago, you had already established very specific criteria that we've summarized on this slide, but Stacey, maybe you can elaborate a little further.
Yeah, this slide is a great illustration of what our district wish list was. Again, we wanted to make sure that we are able to provide learning opportunities that are accessible and effective for all students, that also incorporated universal design for learning, or UDL principles, as a key component. Incorporating UDL solutions that address academic barriers empowered all of our PCCS students. We wanted to support students with IEPs and 504 plans and our English language learners. So with this in mind, we wanted to make sure that all students were supported with a tool or tools that were accessible across multiple platforms, because again, our K2 students have iPads, our 3 through 12 students have Chromebooks or a BYO device, and our teachers have Windows laptops. We also wanted the tool to be easily deployed across our district domain, and one that worked well with our Google Classroom integration. Last, we really wanted to make sure that we worked with a company that provided us with a collaborative relationship, one that would take our suggestions and try to implement them, but then also one that would allow us to trial a tool before we purchased it. A free trial was going to be critical for us to make informed purchase decisions as we move forward.
Cool, and so your search then eventually led to the pilot with Read&Write for all students and staff. Is that right?
Yes, it did.
And yep. And if anyone is watching this webinar and isn't familiar with Read&Write, it's TextHelp's flagship literacy toolbar, and as Stacey has noted, it works across all platforms, so Google, Mac, and Windows. Now, one of the things that's really nice about Read and Write is it basically combines 20 valuable tools into one solution. And when you think about it, that makes it easier to, one, deploy it, train it, and then also maintain it, especially for a district the size of Plymouth-Canton when you have 18,000 students plus staff and parents. Student data privacy and data security are top priorities for TextHelp. So we're both COPA and FERPA compliant. Our development team also values the helpful suggestions and feedback we receive regularly from both our K-12 and our higher ed clients. In fact, we've added several enhancements that were important to Plymouth-Canton. Stacey shared those with us. We also have a really awesome tech support group, and they play a key role by providing a speedy response to quickly resolve technical issues for our clients and those districts and schools that are piloting our products as well. Now, because this webinar is focused on Plymouth-Canton story, we decided to skip a Read and Write demonstration. If you'd like to see a quick overview, you can please visit the link provided here, so text.help/RW demo, and you can watch a really brief 15-minute overview. It'll provide a great review of all the tools and how everything works. So Stacey, this slide details the start of your Read and Write journey that really began several years ago with the district pilot for all students. After the pilot, though, the free student tools in Read and Write were still accessible for all Plymouth-Canton students. And those free tools include text-to-speech, hover speech on the web, and the translation tool, which is perfect for your English learners, and then the practice reading aloud tool to help struggling readers. Now, at the same time of the pilot, you had also decided to purchase a group license to the premium version of Read and Write for use with 150 special ed students. Now, since every student had access to the free or premium version of Read and Write, this strategy was key because it really helped minimize any stigma for the 150 special ed students. Is that right?
Yes. So doing it this way really helped improve outcomes for our special ed students and also provided access to those gen ed students that needed to use the free tools as well.
So then we're now at the stage where you and your AT colleague, Heather Weaver, had devised a plan to take this a step further the next school year. Tell us a little bit more about what you did.
So as you know, many special ed students don't want to look different from their peers, like using a tool that not everyone uses. And so with the pilot, it helped cement the use of Read and Write with our gen ed students and also helped increase usage of for the students with IEPs that Heather and I work with. With most districts, of course, they're not going to spend money unless you can tie that to ways we can show growth for all of our students. And since every decision we need to make it should be data driven, Heather and I looked at how we could use Read and Write to improve student scores on the NWEA's MAP test. That is the assessment that we use, district-wide assessment that we use within our district. For the 2017-18 school year, we chose to kind of focus on one of our Title I elementary buildings. After the fall test administration, all grade 3 through 5 students in the building received access to the full suite of Read and Write, so the premium tools. We then trained the students and their teachers along with our media specialists on how to use the tools. We asked just two things of our teachers. One, that they allow open access and use of the Read and Write tools throughout the school day, and two, that they make an effort to integrate those Read and Write tools and the usage into their instruction at least 3 times a week. After that, we looked at the MAP data to identify and target 3rd grade students that fell in that low growth, low achievement quadrant, and that became our sample group. So when we looked at the winter MAP scores, we saw that there was statistically significant growth amongst that sample group of students.
Okay, Stacey, so you were then able to compare the sample growth to a control, the sample group of students to the control group of students and compare their growth, right? So the sample group had the premium Read and Write access and the control group had just the very basic free version. Then when you compared the results, you saw that the students with the premium access had noticeably outpaced the control students. and many sample group students, if I recall correctly, achieved as many as 30 growth points that school year.
Exactly.
All right, so let's dig into the data. Tell us about the information we're seeing on this slide.
This slide pertains specifically to the Read and Write school that we looked at. The data shows that the average observed growth in the low growth, low achievement quadrant of the sample group of third graders at the Read and Write for Google school. In the fall, their average observed growth was about 4.4 points. In the winter, we looked at their growth after we did the training and implemented the use of Read and Write, and found that their average observed growth ticked up to about 12 points.
And was it a surprise to see that level of growth?
It definitely was. So what we did is we wanted to make sure, we want to kind of do a little extra check. And so the data on this slide, what Heather and I did was compare the percentile point growth for the sample group at the Read and Write for Google school to data from a control group at a different school. And notice that 10 percentile point growth in the Read and Write school versus a 1.4 percentile growth at the control group school. This data tells us that although both schools were growing, the Read and Write for Google school was growing at a much faster rate.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. And then you took it a step further by examining the observed growth of various subgroups. Is that correct?
Yes, really, really important. We wanted to make sure that as a district, we look at reducing the achievement gap for those students in our subgroups. And so we did look at those different groups and kind of pulled out some data around that. This slide shows that the observed growth for students in the Read and Write school, our subgroups, Title I, students with IEPs, our English language learners, and students receiving some literacy intervention. What we noticed about those groups is that their growth was very substantial, and that allowed us to move forward with our stakeholders and ask for a second year purchase.
And so the district decision team goes ahead and approves the second year purchase for the 2018-19 school year, right?
Yes, yes. We were able to purchase it for our initial school and now an additional school. So again, we looked at that first year data and saw that significant growth. We wanted to make sure that it wasn't just attributed to, common instructional practices used in all of our schools. So for that 2018-19 school year, we added that additional building that used the same curriculum, a reading and writing workshop model. But the second school we chose intentionally because it had our highest population of English language learners. In that school, there are approximately 22% of the population is English language learners, and we just kind of picked that school again because we were more curious to see how Read and Write would impact their growth.
So you basically continued to implement Read and Write at both schools using the same methodology as the previous year. And when you looked at the data for both schools, you once again saw statistically significant growth that you were able to measure by the MAP test data.
Yes, and comparing the schools, in comparing those two schools, we saw differences in growth that we felt could be attributed to Read and Write, along with solid instructional practices and our great teachers in PCCS.
Now, the exciting part is really how well your students and teachers kind of embrace this experiment. Really just being open to incorporate Read and Write into what they were already doing. We know teachers have so much on their plates, especially when you throw in the challenges of remote learning now. And you basically set this up in a very thoughtful way to help make it very easy, right, on a daily basis without really creating additional stress for your students or teachers.
Yes, from past experience, we know that we have to make sure that our teachers aren't feeling overwhelmed with having the stress of implementing one more thing. They're fairly new to Read and Write, and the approach ended up working really well in 2017 and 18, but then also again in 2018 and 19.
So you compiled the data, and then you met with the decision team again to discuss next steps. Tell us about that.
Yes, now we had to go to the stakeholders. So this included our teaching and learning, which is our curriculum department, tech integration, our technology teams, and both the special education department and the EL department. We summarized our successes at both schools and explained how Read and Write can be part of our district-wide dynamic plan, one UDL tool that supports all of our students. We also focused on leveraging Read and Write to increase our one-to-one participation, especially since we were using more digital resources. As you're likely aware, some digital resources are pretty accessible, but some are not. And Read and Write fit right in with that. We spoke to the fact that Read and Write can be used with digital text. Our students are accessing to provide additional support, provide text-to-speech if it's not built in, provide extra support in terms of vocab acquisition with the dictionary and the picture dictionary for struggling readers and our English language learners, but also using word prediction and voice typing to improve confidence in writing. So with that, the core team decided or agreed with our recommendation and approved a district-wide purchase of Read and Write for all of our students. So that's over 15,000 students that now have access to all the tools to help address any barriers they might have and push them even further.
So which is great. So you get to the point where you receive approval to move forward, but then the really hard part starts because now you've got the green light and now you've got to roll out and train everybody. And one thing that I love is your plan included this really amazing Google site, which you created, and everybody can find it if you go to RW4G, the @ symbol, and then PCCS, and that's all in caps. And Stacey, this site was specifically designed to help train students, staff, and families. Is that correct?
Yes, it was really important to our core team that we have an ability to roll this out without becoming a huge challenge for our teachers. We've had a lot of other curriculum implementation over the last couple of years. Our message to staff has always been, you don't need to have a deep knowledge of how these tools work. You just need to know they're there. But when you see a student who needs a tool, you can go ahead and suggest that tool. We decided the easiest way for us to help train over 1,000 teachers was kind of a one-stop shop that made it easy to get information needed during the school day or at 10 o'clock at night when a teacher's trying to figure out how to use a tool or how a tool works. And that's definitely why we built the site. I basically, to build that site, I took information and resources from the Text Help website and information from the Text Help YouTube channel and merged those two things together in one place, specifically for our PCCS families and staff. And we update that frequently. And most recently, we actually added an additional site just for staff or students and family that is a little bit more pared down, a little less information. We also focused really strongly on teacher rollout by demonstrating Read and Write at school staff meetings early in the year. So we kind of tried to hit up every staff meeting pretty early on. Then we offered pop-up trainings at each of the schools that was led by one of the members of our department, Assistive Technology, or the Tech Integration team. And that allowed teachers to schedule a time to kind of come in and ask us questions about how they can use the tools in class. And then we also made sure we were very intentional in offering training options at our district-provided PD events throughout the year, along with a monthly newsletter that kind of featured new ways to use Read and Write in the classroom.
And overall, how do you think this strategy is working out so far?
Yes, it's really been a game changer. It has kind of helped us implement and be very successful. And moving forward, we'll probably continue with that success.
Okay, so tell us more about the data you've collected on this slide.
So this is the really exciting part. This slide summarizes the total number of Read and Write events per month. And so every time a student uses a Read and Write tool, it can be counted as an event. You see that we quickly grew from about 32,000 events in September to consistently exceeding 100,000 events in October, November, December, and January, which was for us really amazing. February went down a little bit, but that's because we had a lot of snow days. So that helped that.
Now, this slide kind of highlights Read and Write student usage when you made the transition to remote learning.
Yeah, so I was a little bit nervous about what would happen when we moved into March, but we can see that, yes, in March, everything definitely changed because of the coronavirus, and all schools in Michigan, as across the nation, were closed. So our last day of in-person instruction was March 13th. what we've been pleased to see is that our students are continuing to access these tools as they ease into the transition of remote learning. And as a district, we have found ourselves extremely fortunate to have a solution in place already that addresses accessibility for all of our students. It's really one less thing for us to have to worry about when building our remote learning plans at a district level as we switch to that remote learning.
Now, I know you've also done a great job kind of surveying students to identify and track the most popular read and write tools, and this slide is largely based on their feedback.
Yes, it really was no surprise that text-to-speech was going to be the major tool that is used, a favorite tool for students, but we have also throughout the year have seen steady increases in the use of word prediction, the check-it tool, tools to annotate text, the dictionary, the picture dictionary, and the highlighters. These are all our deeper level tools that we are happy to see increase. Overall, we've noticed a huge increase in students' confidence to attack complex reading and writing tasks more independently. And in speaking with our ELL coach, she was very excited, shockingly to me, to see a decline in the use of the translator tool. And she said this tells her that her English language learners, as we've moved through the year, are increasing their skills enough to warrant decreased use of that tool. So that's one tool we saw go down, and I was a little worried, but she really kind of let me know that that was where she wanted to see that go.
That's really fantastic, Stacey, and I think the data that you've shared with us today, it really does tell a story. The next few slides are meant to help showcase and highlight the impact of Read and Write for Google Chrome on Plymouth-Canton students. Tell us a little bit about this one.
So yeah, part of my job is to collect data at kind of a macro district level, but also I work with students, and so what I collect data is the effect on students at a micro level, students I work with. And one of the middle school students or teachers that I work with shared information with me in terms of, I apologize, that was my, shared information with me regarding some of her students' work. And this particular student reads at about the second grade level. This is a student I work with as well. And after we implemented Read and Write with some targeted training by me, we were able to see real improvements in his reading and in his writing in a short period of time. You can see a real difference from the before sample, which was in October, to the after sample that was in late November.
Yeah, it's an amazing difference, isn't it?
It was astounding, trust me.
Now, this is another student example too, and I think this is from a middle school student as well.
Yes, this is a second example from another middle school student that benefits from using Read and Write's word prediction, along with the check-it tool as a deeper level spell check before turning her assignments. Her before sample is from November, and her after sample is from December. And the teacher that I work with that works with this student has been really amazed to watch the students' writing confidence increase. Most of the students she works with, the students I work with, were not able to write full paragraphs, but now with the ability to use Read and Write, they can expand on their thoughts in much greater detail, specifically for this student using that talk and type tool.
And Stacey, this slide features two more quotes from some of your middle school and elementary teachers. And the message here really speaks to the fact that, well, I know that you've got just some really awesome teachers in your district, and really none of this would have been possible without their great instruction and dedication and your focus on trying to make things easier for all the students and staff.
Yes, it's definitely been fabulous. For me, because I do still work with students, I love seeing the improvements and the increased confidence with them in their work has been so powerful for me. If we can take our low growth and low achieving students, our English language learners, our gen ed students that don't really get support, that are still struggling, and boost their confidence to a higher level while we remove the fear to independently tackle any piece of reading and writing, then that's when we can make all the difference in our students' lives.
Well, and I think now with the transition to remote learning, students, we're finding out that there's a larger group of students that could benefit from help that may not have been identified before. So,
absolutely.
As we kind of move forward with this, we're hoping that by sharing Plymouth-Canton's journey, it sparked your desire to help close the achievement gap with students. Whether they're low growth, low achieving students in your school or district, English learners and Gen Ed students as well. The important thing here is this website, text.help/RWPCCS. We have additional resources that you can access and learn from to help see what could happen in your district. Stacey, this is amazing. You also posted a helpful analysis that details the potential savings you can achieve in Plymouth-Canton by the forced switch to digital materials.
Yes. So initially I looked at it to try to just kind of nudge our high school staff to go paperless. But now that everyone is utilizing digital resources, I looked at the cost of creating paper handouts or providing paper versus going digital, and discovered that how we as a district can save more than $100,000 at least per year by replacing our paper handouts with accessible digital materials, which is a more UDL approach anyways.
Oh, wow. It's really stunning that cost savings can be that high. Now, Stacey has graciously offered to help answer questions that anyone watching this recording may have. So feel free to reach out to Stacey, and we've posted her email on this slide. I always like to highlight that premium Read and Write is free for teachers, and you can download and register for access by visiting text.help/RW is free, and that's a case-sensitive URL. We've also included a link to the 15-minute Read and Write overview demo video, along with my email address. I'm happy to assist with any questions. We also offer free demos and pilots, and I can share Read and Write subscription options and pricing for your school or district. And so now we've arrived at the final slide. Thanks so much for watching our session. If your schedule permits, we'd love to have you stick around for our live Q&A session. A very special thanks to Stacey Banks for joining us today and explaining how Plymouth-Canton is using Read and Write, along with excellent instruction from a wonderful group of teachers, coaches, and staff to help close their achievement gap. I'm Mark Callahan. Please check out all the resources from our session and let us know how we can assist your instructional efforts going forward, and have a wonderful day. Thanks, Stacey.